Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Ground Zero. Today I'm joined by John. Today we're going to be talking about his first time starting a business. So do you want to tell me a bit about yourself, John, and about your
Sure,
past?
sure. Hi, Ben. Yeah, I've been in the electrical wire and cable industry now for
Hmm.
47 years, 48 years this year. So, yeah, a long time. Started back in 1976, and I've worked for big companies, small companies, and during that time, I've actually started three businesses of my own. So I think we're going to talk today about the first one I started back in 1990.
Hmm. Perfect. So obviously that was a long time ago. So do you want to tell me about the start process and probably the difference between if you were to start one now, what you would sort of do differently?
Sure. I mean, I can probably draw a bit of a comparison because we started that business and then went on to sell it sometime later. Started another one 5 years ago, and the conditions were really very different. So maybe drawing a comparison between the two. So if anyone can remember back as far as 1990, we had a world was a very different place. It's before the internet, so any marketing you needed to do with the yellow pages or go down the library. Nobody had mobile phones, so it really was a very different world, and you had to do research in a different way. Starting a business was pretty straightforward. And for me at the time, I'd been working in the industry then for some 20 odd years, and I'd just been made redundant with a colleague of mine. The company we were working for had been taken over and closed down our division. So we thought we'd start up on our own. And so we rented a small unit and we put our redundancy money into it, which wasn't a huge amount of money back then. And then basically we just picked up the phone and spoke to everybody we could think of. And we got a pretty good reception, all down to customer service, really. We didn't have a lot
Hmm.
else going for us at that time. There was no website. We didn't have any literature. It was just talking to people and getting our point across. But I guess we weren't alone. Everyone else was doing the same sort of thing.
Hmm.
And so it was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was pretty straightforward. The more calls you made, the more sales you made. It was as simple as that, really. And we had that business for 5 years. But it was tough. We didn't take any holidays in that time. When you start a business up from scratch, I guess you could say every day's a holiday in some respect. You got nobody else telling you what to do. But yeah, it was financially tough, but we got there. And well, it was 6 years later, actually, we sold the business to another company and carried on working for them for a number of years after that.
So what was this company about? Was this your wire company now, or was this a different one?
It was a different wire company, so
Okay.
the same sort of principle. It's a wholesale business, so we were selling to manufacturers within the UK,
Mm.
people who needed bulk wire. So we would source it from various manufacturers. Again, at that time, primarily in the UK. Put it in our warehouse, put a margin on, and move it on as quickly as we could, really. And it was successful. We started really on the background of having done the same thing for a multinational, so they had a lot of money to throw at it, so they could spend money on exhibitions and literature and telemarketing and things like that. We couldn't do that, so we just
Mhm.
had to use our nous, the contacts that we built up over the years, and just really work on that basis.
Okay. So predominant, as you mentioned, you were on calls quite a lot of time talking to people. Was that your only bit of marketing, or did you venture into different aspects?
The only thing we really did then, we spent a bit of money on put a catalogue together and
Mhm.
then mailed that out. We had lots of contacts really, so we didn't. The research probably was done for us in our previous life,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like we had to go and do a lot of searching at libraries or anything like that. We knew enough people that we wanted to deal with, so it was mainly just telephone calls, physically going to see them, um, which again was much more common back in the day. And then once we'd put this catalogue together and just mailed it out to them, it was just keeping on their backs then. And we use fax
Mhm.
machines. If you don't know what that is, ask your parents. That
Uh,
was a method of communication. And mail, I suppose, thinking about it. Yeah, we physical mail. Now
yeah.
people will send an email blast. We would send a letter out in the post. Um, God, yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was it was a much slower pace, but a lot easier in some respects. There seemed to be less competition because people just couldn't do it in the same sort of speed that you can today with the electronic systems that we've all got.
Hmm. So I'm guessing you had a job before actually starting the business. So what skills did you learn from starting your own business compared to just being an ordinary job working your typical 9 to 5, let's say?
Um, I suppose the skills that I've always been working in sales and marketing up until
Mm,
that point.
okay.
So I was comfortable with that side of the business. I'd not actually financially run a business before, so I didn't really know too much about the legalities of whether to set up a partnership or a limited company. But I knew a friendly accountant who knew his way around all that sort of thing. So I just went and sat down with him and said, right, how do we do this? Took outside advice, really. And he said, yeah, you really need this to be you could do it either way. You could do it as a partnership or as a limited company. But we figured at that point that we wanted to appear bigger, so it seemed the right thing to put a limited company out there. Probably still the case to this day. I'm not sure it actually adds any strength in terms of financial security for customers, but it's an image thing. And it was certainly back in the day, it was an image thing then to have a limited company rather than a sole trader or a partnership. So
Hmm.
yeah, we took the advice from the accountant, put everything in place. We kept all of our books on physical, not even spreadsheets, they were ledgers. Um, used typewriters rather than word processors. It was even
Mm,
that far back. So feels like a dinosaur when I'm talking like that, but it works.
yeah. So do you want to talk me a bit through the process of deciding that you want to start this business, you want to go through, and sort of the steps that you took from the decision, right, I want to do this, and then the steps that you took to actually start and make it instead of all talk and actual reality?
Yeah, I guess we were pushed to some extent by the fact that we were being made redundant. Our company had been taken over,
Hmm.
and we knew the writing was on the wall. Um, so we thought, well, we can either leave, go and get a job somewhere else, or we could sit tight and see what sort of a payout we're going to get, having worked there for a number of years at this point. So we sat around. That was a dreadful time because we knew we were going, but we didn't want to leave and jeopardize any payment that we could have got. Um, so we sat around and just made our plans and said, well, when this finishes, what can we do? So I guess we had a bit of time under the guise of sort of form of paid employment, really, to sit there and plan out, well, who would we talk to? What sort of products could we sell? How can we buy these?
Hmm.
We made a few phone calls and pretty much had the thing set up before we'd actually had to leave our previous employer. We hadn't actually traded, but everything else was pretty much in place. We had a name set up. We had a limited company registered, and then we started trading literally on day one after we'd been made redundant.
Hmm.
But it gave us the time to sort of plan as to what was the structure of the business going to be, where were the premises going to be. We went out and found ourselves a unit to sit in. Um, yeah, so we had time. I guess is a lot of people don't have that sort of time.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you've had 3 businesses, I believe.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk us through those two and the decisions to end, obviously, the first one and move on to the next one?
yeah. So the first one was we'd had it for 6 years, and we'd reached a plateau where funding was difficult, more difficult to get in those days than it is now. I mean, it's not terribly easy at the moment, but it was certainly much tougher then. So the whole business had been built on generated profit.
Hmm.
So we did okay, but we certainly weren't mega rich. And in order to scale the business any further, we really needed some sort of outside investment. So we looked at various options, and then somebody came along and said, "We'd like to buy your business." So we said, "Okay, fine, that's
Hmm.
fine. We'll take that." And they wanted to keep us on, so we can continue to work for that company for another 15 years. Um, that was fine. And then eventually, I'd got to the point it became very corporate, and I didn't want to work that way anymore. So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to leave and go and work, set my own business up again."
Hmm.
And so I set up really just a sales agency. It was just me in an office, totally on my own. Um, it was a limited company, but it didn't really need to be at that point.
Hmm.
And so I had that for another 4 or 5 years, and it was going well. I was actually making quite a bit of money, but I couldn't work out. I was just miserable, and I couldn't work out what it was. And I came to the conclusion when I was speaking at a friend's funeral that we were just having fun. This was the guy that I'd set the first business up with. Unfortunately, he died. And speaking at his funeral, I thought, well, we just used to have so much fun, and it was working together and in a team. So I decided at that point with the second business, yep, I need to fold this and go and work for a company in a team environment. I'm just not suited to work totally on my own. So that's what I did. I sought a few roles, ended up taking a role with a US multinational,
Hmm.
and I was there for 3 years. Actually thought this probably would be my last employment. You're starting to reach an age where you think, yeah, this will do for another 5, 10 years. Um, and then everything changed there. They took some acquisitions on. I was running their European operations, and they took on another company, merged the two together, and said,
Hmm.
"We don't need two MDs, so you're going." So I got a payoff, and I thought, "Damn, what am I going to do now?" And then at the same time, my ops director also left. Um, so we started to chat and said, well, why don't we start up on our own again? So that's what we did 5 years ago, registered this company, Wire and Cable Supplies, and gone from strength to strength. And I have to say, comparing it to the first company, it's been a lot easier. You know, accountant packages, email packages, internet, website development,
Hmm.
all of those things really speed the opportunity to scale a business. So we've gone a lot faster with this business than we did with the first, for sure.
Hmm. So you say the main difference between your first one and this one is primarily the internet and being able to actually post stuff on social media and actually get out to a wider audience rather than pick up the phone, hopefully that this number that picks up wants an actual wire.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly that. The ability to scale these days quickly, and the ability to move quickly, is much much higher than it was back in 1990,
Hmm.
and that's all down to the technologies that we have available today. You know, I can operate a global business from a very small office somewhere. We sell to a number of countries now across
Hmm.
Europe, Africa. We trade with China, we trade with India, we trade with lots of European countries, we trade with the US, um, and it's easy. It's done with email like everybody else does, you know. But
Hmm.
those things weren't available to us back in 1990. So in some ways it was harder. It wasn't
Hmm.
harder work. There's a lot more pressure now. You know, we're doing a lot more than we used to.
Yeah.
But it's certainly easier to scale these days.
So how do you say the role of actually owning a business has changed from obviously back when you had your first business to now? Because you've got the internet in now, is like the role change of overseeing, or has it sort of stayed the same, just different fundamentals?
Um, Fundamentally, I guess it's the same. You know, you're still responsible for the overall goodwill of the business, making sure it's running properly.
Mm.
It's just moving faster, I guess, than it was earlier. But no, I don't think in that respect things have changed very much. Competition's harder because everyone's on the internet, so
Hmm.
it's easier for our customers to find our competitors. That wasn't so easy back in the day. Um, so you have to be nimble, you have to be sharp, um, probably more so than we had to before. But
Hmm.
we've got the tools to do it, so it works both ways, really. Um, yeah, I don't see that there's a massive difference other than, like I said earlier, the ability just to move more quickly and to scale faster.
Hmm. Okay, so obviously you mentioned a bit earlier on that you deal with like China, the US, and other countries.
Yeah.
What would be your sort of advice to deal with all these different time zones? Because obviously we're in England, and obviously some customers might expect like a response like that. Some will go, okay, it's a different time zone, we'll leave it a few hours. Is it a case of a set schedule of get up at this time at night and answer this time zone, for example, or is it when
Uh,
you can, you'll reply?
Our customers primarily are in our time zone, give or take an hour.
Hmm.
Most of our customers are either in the UK or in Europe, which is only really an hour different.
Hmm.
Our suppliers are coming in from China and the US.
Ah, okay.
So the US is easy. We'll send stuff off in our day during the day on an email, and we'll have a response by the time we get in first thing in the morning. So that's really not a problem. China's being 10-hour difference. That's probably a little bit tougher. But I find that our suppliers there seem to work 24 hours a day. I'm not quite sure how they do it, but I can send off something maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon my time, which probably should be the middle of their night, and I'll still get a response back in half an hour. So I'm not sure I'd want that work ethic, being sat by an email 24 hours a day, but seems to work for them. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's probably a case they've got different people on like night shifts and stuff, I imagine.
I'd like to think so. Otherwise, they're working them really hard. But yeah, we get our responses pretty quickly. So I'm happy with that.
So I guess the next question would be, how do you interlink the supplier to the buyer? Is it you order it to your warehouse and then send it off, or is it a direct shipment?
No, we tend to bring everything in so we can quality check it into
Okay.
the UK, which does seem to add a bit of handling sometimes. You think, why are you doing that? But we all want to be sure that whatever we're doing is absolutely right for the customer.
Hmm.
Most of the things we do aren't unique, so we have to be right. We have to be top quality. We have to be on time. Because the product, in theory, they could buy from a number of places or even go direct to some of the manufacturers if their volume is big enough. So yeah, we like to get it in. We like to check it. We like to make sure everything's packaged nicely. There's no damage in transit or anything like that. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, we'll order it. We'll bring it in. And often it's a case of sorting out things like import duties, customs, VAT on entry, all of those fun things that the government put in place for us.
Hmm.
The customers don't always want to handle that, so we'll handle all of that for them. And then it's just the regular VAT that you have on sales in the UK. Um, so that's part of our offering, I guess, is to sort out all of that hassle. So we bring it in. We've got 3 warehouses over in Weston-super-Mare,
Hmm.
um, and bring it in, store it up there, and then sell it as quickly as we can, I guess.
Yeah. So if someone was going to go into business, what would be some books or podcasts or whatever that you'd recommend to watch to gain a bit more knowledge?
Wow. Okay, you've hit me with a side one there. So I would say a classic book I always sit by. It's an old book now, but it's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Hmm.
Gets you thinking about how to interact with people. For us, it's a people business. We've got to do the right things for our customers. We need to be personable. We need to listen to them, and that tells you everything you need to do in that respect. What else would I do? Anything by Seth Godin. He always seems to have some pretty good ideas.
Hmm.
Um, Mark Schaefer's got some great ideas on marketing. He's got about 10 best-selling books now, so just look up that author. He's a regular contributor to You Are the Media, so I think we know each other through that group. You'll find him in there. But yeah, anything from Mark Schaefer, Seth Godin. But that Stephen Covey book, that's sort of the Bible I've stood by for many years now.
Okay, perfect. So is obviously from going to one business to the next, what would be like the biggest standout between each business that was different, would you say?
Um, so the first one was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work. Um, Took us a long time to move because of
Hmm.
the lack of technology available. Um, but the scalability was really not there. So it was going to be a long, hard slog, and we were frustrated really that we couldn't grow any faster than we did, which is probably why we sold the business. Second one was just me working individually, and I think my question to anybody would be to look at yourself and say, am I happy working on my own?
Hmm.
Because I thought I was when I set it up, and it became clear that whilst I was successful at what I was doing, I just wasn't very happy doing it. And and I needed to work in a team, or at least with one other individual that you could bounce ideas off of. So really look at your personality. Are you that type of person who's quite happy to work on your own?
Hmm.
And then this last business, it's gone really well for us, and I guess we just need to look at, okay, we've scaled up a business in 5 years now, and we need to start thinking about where do we take this business. It's successful now. It's selling in many countries. Um, it's profitable, and we're doing very nicely with it. But what do we do? Do we sell this onto a bigger company? Do we possibly sell it out to the shareholders? I don't think that's going to the employees rather. Don't think that's likely to go. So we've got to think about an exit strategy on that, and we haven't got that yet. But we're still
Hmm.
having fun growing the business. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your questions at all, but
Yeah. So, what would you say the biggest high and the lowest low of your experience through all these businesses would actually be?
biggest high from all three is absolutely having the freedom to do what you want to do on your own with nobody telling you what to do. And I guess that's the sign of anyone who wants to run their own business. Having worked for a number of multinationals now, I found myself pretty uncomfortable when people were telling me what to do, and that's just probably a personality trait. So the biggest high of doing what you want to do when you want to do it is fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, the downside to that is really the fact that you're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're thinking about your business. And if you want to just take holidays, or if you just want to sit and relax, that's not always easy. There's always something to do. I could work if I had the energy and it was possible. I could find things to do 24 hours a day very easily. There's always more to do. You can always do that a little bit more for your business. So that in itself can be a bit of a drain, and you got to take some downtime. Don't always do that as often as I should, but yeah, we need to think about that.
Hmm. Perfect. So, to start wrapping it up, is there anything you want to add, like any advice from your actual period of being a business owner that you'd go, actually, before this, I didn't know, but I would have liked to known in advance?
Yeah, I think it's easy to get this imposter syndrome and not think you're capable of doing things. And I've found very much that whenever I've tried to do something in business, it generally works out. It doesn't make me a hero. I just think you've got to have the courage to just do things at times.
Hmm.
And it's easy to sit back and think, well, other people have done this in other industries. Who am I to do it? Other people who are perhaps more qualified than I am, who've got longer in the industry or have got more skills. But I think just doing stuff, the old Nike, just do it. I think it's a great motive to get your business going. Really, just have a go. Pretty much what you're doing with this podcast, right? You started it, you thought you'd have a go at it, and it's working out great for you. So yeah, the biggest thing, just get stuck in, have a go at it, whatever it is. It doesn't usually go horribly wrong, and you'll soon get feedback if it is going wrong.
Hmm.
So just have the courage and do it.
Perfect. So, is other than obviously just getting stuck in, what was sort of the soft skills that you've actually learned from starting businesses, or like has communication been a big factor, or like anything at all?
Yeah, I guess even before we started the first business, having worked in sales, you have to listen. You have to
Mm.
listen to what your customer wants. Um, and sometimes, we can all do this. I can do it now. You can be a bit arrogant and believe your own publicity at times and think you know what's best. But,
Yeah.
the customer will always tell you if what they want is not what you're trying to sell, there's really no point. So you need to listen well. So the biggest
Mm.
soft skill I would say is, you got two ears and one mouth, use them in proportion. Um, listen to what people are asking of you and adapt your business around that rather than just going headlong into something, thinking that you know best, because invariably someone's going to tell you you're wrong.
So in a sense, it's more, oh, what's the old, the customer's always right. Is sort of,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can tell him he's not, but if he's not buying from you, then he's not a customer, right?
Mm,
The customer, you've got to look forward to what the customer wants from you. Um, our whole business has been centered around that, and the fact that some of our competitors don't do that. They believe what uh, what they're saying is right, and you're going to have this whether you want it or not. Well, we don't operate like that. And I don't like that in my personal life. I don't want people knocking on my door telling me I'm going to need to buy something. I'll buy
mhm,
it when I want to buy it, what I need. So yeah, you need. If I'm a customer, you need to listen to me. If I'm a salesperson, I need to listen to the customer.
mhm. So, how different is it from actually being a salesperson to go into a business owner then?
It's one and the same thing. I mean, your
Yeah.
business. If you're not selling, you don't have a business. Simple as that.
Mm,
And I'm not saying this is as a cold hard salesperson. I think I said at the lunch club the other day, one of the things I hate is actually just asking for an order. It's awful. You're going to get rejection, and
mhm,
that's not a nice thing. So we do everything to put the right things in place so that the customer just wants to buy. You don't have to ask. You've put everything
mhm,
else in place there, and they think, yeah, great, this is what I need. I'm going to buy it from you.
mm.
That's the easiest sell of all.
So, just to take your knowledge, obviously from the lunch club where we were to this episode, how do you deal with rejection? Because
Not
obviously,
well. Not well at all. I still take it very personally.
mhm,
I mean, we sat on the panel there, and Katie Kager, who spoke just before me, came up with the best answer of all. And she said, it's not personal. Sometimes the customer's just not ready to buy. They don't need what you want. It's the wrong time. Maybe they don't like you, but usually that's not the case. It's just not right for them at the time. But for me,
mm,
I still, it hurts. If you've put a lot of work in and then somebody says no, that's it's difficult to deal with sometimes. And I sit and sulk like a lot of other people would, I guess.
mhm,
And then eventually just put on my big boy pants and go for the next one. But I can't tell you it doesn't hurt. If you tried, done your best, and put everything in place for an order, and then the person doesn't buy for whatever reason, yeah, it's not easy. You just have to swallow it and get on. But I can't say I like it, and I haven't found a good way to deal with it yet.
all right, perfect. Well, so how are you sort of starting to transition to accepting rejection a bit better? Because you said that it still hurts, but it's getting to a point where you're more accepting. Is it?
It's just accepting now, and again, it's taking Katie's words. It isn't personal. Try and
Mhm,
remember that it's not personal. Most of the time, there's a perfectly good reason that's absolutely nothing to do with what I'm offering. Like, maybe they just can't afford it yet. Maybe they're doing something else.
mhm,
It's not a rejection of me personally. It might be a rejection of what I'm offering as a product because it doesn't actually suit their application. Um, and I guess the reason it hurts at that point is because if I've done enough research, I like to think, well, I've done everything right, so I know it's going to suit their application, and it's just a rejection of my research, I guess, in some respects.
yeah,
Um, so, that's why it hurts. But yeah, I mean, the only thing you can do is just try and remember it's not a personal thing. They're not going to
mhm,
come around and beat my door down at home. They just don't want what I'm selling at the moment. Doesn't happen very often, fortunately, but when it does, it still hurts.
mm. So is there anything that you want to add that you haven't mentioned already that you may want to get out on your experiences at all?
Um, No, I think I've probably got the main points over. Listen to your customers, be positive, have courage, and just have a go at it. And listen to the feedback as well. You'll get
Mhm,
feedback if it's going wrong. People will tell you, um, and just change course. But don't give up. It's doable. I think I grew up from a background. Just went to a secondary school, left after what was O levels at the time. So I didn't have a fantastic education. I went through college later, but
mhm.
my background is not from a huge business development or business degrees or anything like that. It's just getting stuck in and having a go. So if I can do it, anybody else can really.
Perfect. Well, I have nothing else to add if you don't.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Well,
Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure to to be a guest on your podcast. I'm sure it's going to be very successful moving forward. Thanks for the
Oh,
opportunity.
thank you. No, it's a pleasure getting you on, John, and you're more than welcome to come back on later down the line if you want to.
Sure, I'll probably have a go at that when you're rich and famous. It's call me back then.
People have always been coming up to you. They're like, soon you're gonna have to do an episode where you're getting interviewed on first time starting a podcast.
There you go. See,
So that'll be an interesting one. But no,
good. Well, good
but
luck with that.
thank you. It's a pleasure having you on, John. Thanks for
Pleasure.
listening, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks
See you
again.
later. Bye
Bye.
bye.